Somewhere between rent going up again and everyone you know complaining about mortgage rates, Congress quietly did something that actually matters for your housing situation. A new bill just made its way through, and it touches everything from how homes get built to what renters are protected from. I'm not here to hype this up or scare you into thinking your life is about to flip overnight. I just want to walk you through what's actually in this thing, who it's going to affect, and what parts are still genuinely up in the air. Let's get into it. Before we get into the specifics, it helps to know why this bill exists in the first place. Bills like this don't just appear out of nowhere. They're usually a response to something that's been building for a while. And housing has been that something for a lot of families across the country. Rent has been outpacing what people actually take home in a lot of major cities. First-time buyers keep getting squeezed out of the market by starter homes that aren't so starter anymore. And on top of all that, there's a supply problem. The country simply isn't building enough homes to keep up with population growth in a lot of regions. Who sponsored it? What data or events prompted it? And what lawmakers said their goal was? Only include information you can verify from an official source. So with that backdrop in mind, on day, passed, and as of right now, it's already signed into law / still moving through committee, confirmed the actual status before publishing. Now let's actually get into what's inside it. There's a handful of major moving pieces here, so I'll take them one at a time instead of throwing everything at you at once. First up, for example, down payment assistance. Who qualifies, what the numbers are, and when it would kick in if that's confirmed. If any part of it is still unclear or reported differently across sources, say so directly rather than guessing. To make that a little more concrete, picture a couple in their late 20s trying to buy their first place. How this provision would realistically change their situation, what they qualify for, what changes for them financially. Second, for example, zoning and construction incentives. This might involve funding tied to local governments loosening zoning restrictions, incentives for building smaller multifamily units, or something related to speeding up permitting. Flag anything unconfirmed. This one matters more than it might sound at first. A lot of the housing shortage in this country isn't really about demand. It's about how hard it's become to legally build enough homes in the places people actually want to live. Third, for example, renter protections. This could be new eviction rules, limits on rent increases, requirements for landlords, or expanded funding for rental assistance programs. And if there's a fourth piece worth mentioning, cover any additional major component here. This might be infrastructure funding, tax credits aimed at developers, or changes to federal loan programs like FHA or VA loans. One thing worth keeping in mind with all of this, bill language tends to shift right up until the final vote, and sometimes even after through amendments or follow-up legislation. So if a number or detail here ends up slightly different from what you read elsewhere, that's probably why. Section 3, who actually feels this? Here's where I think a lot of coverage gets a little sloppy. People hear housing bill and assume it applies to everyone in the exact same way. And that's rarely how these things work. Let's break it down by who you actually are in this equation. If you're a first-time buyer, for example, easier qualification, new down payment support, etc. If you're renting right now and not planning to buy anytime soon, if you already own a home, property taxes, refinancing options, or if it's mostly irrelevant to this group. And if you're involved in local government or development, city planners, builders, that kind of thing.
It's also worth being upfront here. Some groups genuinely aren't going to notice much difference from this bill at all. And that's fine to say. Not every piece of legislation needs to feel life-changing to be worth understanding. Section 4. What we don't know yet. I want to spend a real minute on this part because it's the section most videos skip, and it's honestly the most important one. A lot of what's in this bill still has open questions attached to it. Specifically, for example, the exact rollout timeline once the bill is signed. For example, how individual states will handle distributing any funding. For example, whether future rulemaking narrows or widens who actually qualifies.
Here's the thing about legislation like this. Passing the bill is really just step one. A lot of the fine print gets worked out afterward through federal agencies writing the actual regulations, and that process can take months. So some of what you're hearing right now, even from reliable sources, is still a bit of a moving target. And I'll say this clearly, if you're making real decisions right now, whether that's timing a home purchase, adjusting a budget, or anything with actual money attached, this is exactly the kind of situation where talking to a financial advisor, a HUD-approved housing counselor, or a legal professional who knows your specific circumstances is going to serve you a lot better than anything in a YouTube video, including this one. Section 5. Why this is getting attention. Housing legislation doesn't usually break into the news cycle unless something about it feels significant. So it's worth asking why this one is getting the attention it's getting. This could be tied to ongoing affordability concerns nationally, timing relative to upcoming elections, a response to a specific housing report or crisis, or public pressure that's been building. Confirm this is accurate before including it. Whether or not this bill ends up being the turning point some lawmakers are describing it as, it tells you something useful about where the housing conversation in Washington is heading right now. And that's probably not the last piece of legislation on this topic we'll see for a while. Summary and outro. So here's a short version of everything we just covered. Makes changes across a few major areas. And some of it is locked in and ready to go. Some of it is still being figured out behind the scenes. And how this actually plays out for buyers, renters, and builders alike is something we'll only really understand over the next several months as the rules get implemented. If this kind of breakdown helped clear things up, do me a favor and hit like. It genuinely helps this reach more people trying to understand the same thing. Subscribe if you want me to keep tracking this bill as it develops, because there's a good chance the details shift. And drop a comment below. I'm curious whether this changes anything about your own plans or if you're more in a wait and see mode right now. Thanks for sticking around for this one. I'll catch you in the next video.